Hey, Chris with Codify Academy here. In this video, I want to explore 3 common file paths that we use as developers. Hopefully this is going to help you understand how file paths work. First, we're going to look at the file path in a browser. Let's open up our template folder index file in Google. And if we look at the URL, we should see something like this. And this file path just tells the browser where this index.html file can be found on your computer. Most likely it's named a little bit differently because you don't have the same name as me. When a computer sees this file path, it sees, oh, there's an index.html file. The index file is going to be found in a folder named template, and that template folder is going to be in a folder named Codify, and that Codify folder is going to be in a folder named desktop, and that desktop folder is going to be in a folder named Chris Brody, and that Chris Brody folder is going to be in a folder named users, and that users folder finally is in a folder that is just your computer hard drive. So it finds that file in your hard drive in a folder called users, in a folder called Chris Brody. There's a folder called desktop, in there's a folder called Codify, in there's a folder called template, and finally we have the index.html file that's displayed. So what happens if we move this file or if we change this file path? So if we change the file path and there's no file that's going to be found, it's just going to render an error. And if we move the folder, the same thing's going to happen. It's going to give us an error that says no files found because the location has changed. So we can actually update the file path in the browser. Let's say we move the folder out of Codify into desktop, and then we refresh the browser and we see the file is not found anymore because the location has changed. So if we update the file path in the browser, we can remove Codify / from the URL, and the browser will no longer look for a Codify folder inside of the desktop, but instead a template folder inside of the desktop folder. So if we refresh, the browser will now be able to find this file. Alright, cool. So let's move it back to the original position inside of the Codify folder, and we'll update that file path again, and we can see it's able to find it. So we're going to move that folder back into its original position in the Codify folder, and I want you to try to update that file path in the browser. I'll give you a second here to think about it. Okay, hopefully you got it. All we need to do is add Codify / back in between the desktop folder and the template folder. So that inside of the desktop folder, we'll look for Codify, then find template, and then find our index.html file. So you're probably wondering, why does this matter? The reason this matters is because if there's an incorrect file path, no files can be found. Okay, so the second place that we want to look at the file path is from an index file itself. So let's open up our template into Atom. So we've used the href and src attributes a few times now. Let's figure out what actually goes inside. So whatever we put in these quotes, we're actually telling the browser where is this file located from the index file. So we can see our link here, goes into our CSS folder, and finds a main.css file. You do the same thing pretty much with images, except you'll go into the img folder. Oh, and you'll have to include those image files, don't forget that. And the third place we want to look at is actually from the CSS file, which is actually in a different directory or folder than our index file. So right now our index file includes a file called main.css that we include from a CSS folder. Sometimes we include other files into that main.css file so we can see it from our index file. So let's imagine we want to use a background image. First we need to download and include one. I'm going to download one from Google really quick. And in CSS we need to add this background image to some sort of element, so we'll use this selector here. And you would normally think, oh, we can just go into this image folder and find this image, right, for this background. Sadly, that's not how it works. We need to look at our folder structure. So we're trying to add this background in CSS, which is inside of a CSS folder. So your typical file path is going to be for your template, .. into the img folder, and then find the image file. And that's just for background images. Remember, for regular images from your index file, you can just go into your img folder if you're adding a normal image. That's it for file paths right now. Hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about what they are and how to create one and how to actually find the file that you want to include. In the future, we're going to see more complicated file paths, but just remember, we're just telling the computer what folder a particular file is located in, and we have to keep in mind where we're coming from.